Hello.
Hola.
Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
Going great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm doing better today. Not as congested. Still congested, but not as.
That's good to know. I mean, you sound perfect as usual,
Thanks.
Angel.
All right. How's your day?
Very good. Very
Good.
good. I finished up my last book in a series, so I'm actually technically on vacation right now, probably till
Heck
tomorrow.
yeah.
Yeah.
Heck
Very rare
yeah.
that I don't have work, floating in the background that I have to do.
Right.
So yeah.
Mm,
It's like,
good.
when you're in college and you get to the end of the semester and you're just like, wow, I have nothing, like there's nothing on
Yep.
the
Now what?
horizon that needs to be done. It's that feeling of
Yes.
just like,
Oh, good.
like you're in the semester and you're like always have a paper due at some point in the
Yeah.
future. That's the feeling. So anywho.
Uh,
Yeah,
good.
I get that once in a great while.
Heck yeah.
Anyhow, yeah.
Hi, chat. Hi, all the people. Oh my gosh. Thank you for
Yeah.
coming again to my channel a second night in a row. um,
Yeah.
this is our regular Tuesday slot. We alternate between my channel and Lisa's channel.
Yep.
Um, and this, I guess, tonight is going to somewhat be like a part one to next week, kind
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so next
Definitely.
week
We're gonna
will
be
be like a part
mhm.
two. Subscribe to Lisa's channel
Yep.
so that you can find the part two because it'll be on her channel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's gonna be a little
and
follow-up.
yeah, exactly. And we're going to talk about this article from Lisa's beloved New York Times
Yes.
about the real cost of like fashion in the world we live in right now. So let me
Yeah.
just, yeah, go ahead.
And I think this is
What were you-
it's really important from a feminist perspective to talk
Mhm.
about fast fashion and the conditions that these clothes are made in, um, because they really disproportionately impact women and children, if you care about
Yes,
children.
and children.
Um, there's a lot of child labor, and women are exploited, and it's not
Big
great.
time.
And they're definitely disproportionately affected. So, women ask us sometimes, like, what can I do? I want to do a feminist action. And
Right.
one thing would just be to consume less,
Yeah. Buy less,
con-
consume less.
yeah, wear your clothes till they wear out. Don't be obsessed with fashion trends. Participate in it less, just
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be like, zero waste or something. It's just less. Like if you're
Yep.
buying clothes every month, maybe every
Harm
other month
reduction.
or whatever. Yeah, harm
We're
reduction.
not asking, and we don't think it's realistic to expect like harm elimination, but
Right.
you certainly can reduce the harm that and the yeah, the footprint you have on this world.
Absolutely. It's like, like I'm not a vegan, but like some vegans, they're super militant and they're like, everybody should just totally stop eating meat. And then there are other people who realize, like, hey, if you eliminate meat like twice a week, if everybody did that, that would be a massive impact. So it doesn't have to be like, you can still have a really significant impact by just cutting back.
Yep,
Um,
exactly.
so, and I think that with makeup also, if you can
Hmm.
eliminate even a couple products from your routine, like you're on the right track and you
Exactly.
are making a difference. So,
Exactly.
um, all these things. But yeah, I think this article is going to be pretty sobering.
Hmm.
Um,
And interestingly, it's gone through three different titles in the last one day, hasn't it?
yeah, so it started off as the true cost of a $12 t-shirt, and then it became
They changed the title to Your
uh,
$12 shirt was made in functional slavery.
yes.
And then
And
they
I don't,
changed the title back.
oh, did they?
Because now it's back to the true cost of a $12
Well,
t-shirt.
that might be because
Oh,
the
the archive.
archive. Yeah. So I actually kind of like this title better because
Yeah.
it leaves it a little bit to the imagination, but they do that for marketing purposes. Also, something to note is something to note is the authors of articles don't write their own titles. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's the marketing department. So, yeah. And of course, I don't know if I haven't actually read this article, so that's going to be exciting. Normally, I kind of skim them, but there's a big environmental impact to fast fashion, also, and cheap fashion or cheap clothing. So, um, you know, often it's like cotton that's grown in the US and then it has to be shipped to Bangladesh, say, and the garments are made there and the dyes come from
Hmm.
all different places. And if there's metal, that has to be, like zippers and stuff, that has to be mined from the ore has to be mined, like all these things,
Where
again.
again, women and children are exploited.
Right, and the environment too, and right,
Of
like
course, yes.
most discarded clothing is wearable and it goes to a landfill to be incinerated or, just left there. So it's not like even when you give away clothes to Goodwill or something like that, most of it ends up in a landfill anyways. So again, we can all reduce our consumption by we were talking before the stream, like I said, I went 3 years without buying clothing.
Yeah.
'Cause I just wore what I had and, like, it started to wear out, and so I replaced it. But just doing less. Anyways, I don't know, I'm, like, preaching.
No, no. Shall we dive in?
Yes.
Okay. So the true cost of a $12 t-shirt was published today. So here's an adolescent working in a textile factory in Dhaka, Bangladesh.
Yes.
A child.
Right, exactly.
Fashion, it turns out, is the true opiate of the masses. Across the country, while inflation has siphoned middle class wealth, American consumers have enjoyed a consolation prize. Apparel is dirt cheap.
Mm.
Oh no, just didn't make it a little bit bigger there. In 1993, you could buy a t shirt for $13 and get a mid sized tank full of gas for about the same. Today, the full tank would cost more than 3 times as much. That t shirt, $12.74.
Yeah, clothes are really cheap.
Yes.
I mean, you can get clothes cheap.
Mm-hmm.
But we were also talking before the stream, like, not all more expensive, first of all, not all more expensive clothing is made ethically at all. A lot of it's just extra profit, right? Like they're still
Mm-hmm.
paying the
Mm-hmm.
workers terribly.
Of course.
But some more expensive clothing, is higher quality and they do pay the workers better. So that would be another option too, besides consuming less, which you should obviously do, but
Mm-hmm.
also, if you can afford it, which a lot of people can't, that's kind of the problem. And it's also like, why would you? If you can get stuff so cheap, from an economic standpoint, the consumer is always going to act in their own
Of
interest. That's why we
course.
have to regulate stuff
Yes.
because people they're not going to, most people don't have like an altruistic mindset when it comes to like, the thing is there, you have the money, it's on the shelf,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to buy
I'm gonna
it.
buy it. Yeah.
You're not really thinking about what's on the other end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know the human cost of this benefit. One sweltering day in Bangladesh 10 years ago, workers at the Rana Plaza garment factory complex raised alarms about cracks in the building. They were threatened with loss of a month's pay if they stayed home. The building collapsed the next day, killing 1,134 people and injuring over 2,500.
Yeah.
A subsequent legally binding accord between trade unions and still too few brands improved building safety in Bangladesh. And yet, while that one problem was addressed, today even less attention is being paid to the welfare of the people who work across the industry. Over the last decade, the voices of the over 75 million vulnerable workers in the global garment and textile industry have been, like the products they made, steadily devalued. It wasn't always this way. From the Industrial Revolution until the end of the Cold War, the apparel industry was the world's most important engine of human development. In mid 19th century Manchester, the textile trade fostered technological leaps that led to higher wages and lower prices for consumer goods. By the turn of the century, Eastern European Jews and other immigrants built the Lower East Side's garment district into not only a wealth generator, but the vanguard of a national workers' rights movement. In the 1960s, the Korean apparel industry anchored the post war recovery and then expanded to other Asian countries. Following Deng Xiaoping's economic reforms, China's apparel industry helped spark economic growth that contributed to one of the largest exoduses of humanity from absolute poverty. Apparel has served as an escape from subsistence farm work for billions of people.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, so historically, the garment industry, textiles industry, like has been a better option. Like going to work, and if you're from a village and you're subsistence farming and you're barely able to make enough food to survive, going to work in even a sweatshop was preferable to that. Because you could earn a little
Ugh,
bit more and live in a little higher standard of living. And it was, it was part of the Industrial Revolution for the last like 200 years.
yes,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Today, that engine has stalled in first gear. The average garment worker earns barely half the pay they need to reach a decent standard of living.
Mm.
The monthly minimum wage for a Bangladeshi garment worker is equivalent to $75, meaning a worker can make less than $3 a day. Many are unable to afford staples like meat. The easy scapegoat for the miserable working conditions many apparel workers labor in is fast fashion, a business model popularized by the likes of Zara founder Amancio Ortega, number 14 on Forbes' billionaires list, that chases
Yeah.
hit runway trends with rapid production. But such companies like Shein, with its staggeringly low prices and opaque supply chains, are symptoms, not the cause.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by that premise they're setting up there, because if you would say like, well, isn't it the cause? Like, if this guy's amassing billions of dollars, like I don't know what, 14 on the billionaires list is. It has to be like many, many billions of dollars,
Has
right?
to be.
Okay, so if you take like a few of those $1 billion and you distribute it equitably amongst all the workers who make the clothes for that guy,
Oh
like
God, I just
they
Googled his net
probably,
worth.
yeah.
It's $83.2 billion. dollars.
Okay, there you go. Like that's such a staggering amount of money that, like, even if there are hundreds of thousands of people in the supply chain, you know, that makes Zara clothing,
Ugh,
if those billions of dollars trickle down, like those people would actually have a higher standard of living. But these
right.
capitalists are so freaking greedy. Like, nobody needs $1 billion, let alone $83 billion. What could you ever do with that in your life?
No,
Pay workers fairly. Yeah, Useless
right.
Strawberry
With
says, eat the rich.
eat the rich. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That is the
Susie.
problem. Yeah.
Funny how slavery centuries ago takes precedence over this modern day slavery.
Yeah, it's like you know, at least in the US, the shadow of American slavery is very much still with us today. And
Present.
it's
Oh yeah.
very part of the everyday conversations and stuff. And we don't realize, and that's not happening anymore. I mean, arguable, the prison system and the
Right.
legal system and the education system and the welfare system and whatever. Yeah, we have,
Mm-hmm.
in a sense, a form of modern slavery in the US and racism, etc. but we're like ignoring or we're blind to this because it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. It's in these third world countries that like
Happening
we're
to
just
other
like,
people, other
yeah,
places.
it's not happening here. But, it is a kind of thing where we could change the laws in America that we wouldn't be allowed to import stuff from these, slavery, like from countries that use slavery.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we want to live in like a global society, we have to understand that slavery happening in another country, if we're benefiting it, is just the same as slavery here.
Right.
Yeah, there's no difference. Like,
No.
imagine if we were getting like rum from the Caribbean and they were still using plantations with slavery. Like,
Right.
no
That
one
would
would be
be
cool with that.
no. But for
But
some reason, people don't think about these Bangladesh factories.
right.
Mm.
Yeah.
One aggravator is the current purchasing habits of millennials. The first modern generation to hit their 30s in worse economic shape than their parents, millennials came of age during the Great Recession, slammed by student debt. Inflation has pushed housing, energy, food, all the essentials of life, further beyond the grasp of many. As a result, many younger Americans aren't yet putting their wallets where their values are.
Okay. So I didn't read the article before we're reading it now, but I did read the comments, and a lot of people criticized this idea. And what do you think, and what does the chat think about this idea that like the burden for this system is on the consumer, to act ethically? Like, I think
Yeah.
we were just talking, like, people act in their own economic interest. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to change things through regulation and stuff like that. You can't expect, you have to incentivize them somehow or make it illegal.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like they say, like in the art, it says push housing, energy, food further from the grasp of many Americans, millennials. Whereas these fast fashion retailers are like what they can afford, right? So that's where their money is going, even if it's conflicting with their values.
Yeah, exactly. And there's exactly like we're, you know, relative to people in the third world, millennials in America are doing great. But
Mm-hmm.
we are in we've experienced a recession, and um, millennials and Gen Z, they're in a much different, difficult economic position. And, you know,
Mm-hmm.
they might not have the per, ability to purchase things that align with their, or that were produced in a way that align with their
Right.
values, because they just don't have the money to do it. Like,
Right.
ethical clothing and stuff probably is 5 or 6 times more expensive, if you
Of
can even
course.
find
And
it. I
that's
think
what
that's the yeah.
there's a comment from Resurrects Casually. When the ethical choice costs way more on average, it really isn't a choice for a lot of people. Absolutely true.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
the availability of ethical fashion is very limited, sometimes not even there.
That's it. Yeah, and we were, before the stream I was mentioning like Patagonia, it's like very, very expensive. It is ethical. But there is also a lot of that too, greenwashing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like companies that are like, oh, we're going to be net carbon zero by 2040 or whatever. It's like, and all those kinds of things too. It's like, it's kind
Yeah.
of,
Well, and
yeah,
it's hard to like, the conversation, everyone wants to support local businesses or shop local is always the thing, shop small. And like, I think so often people would love to do that, but it's hard to justify like the prices when you have like a
hmm
family to feed and you could like if you're going to a local boutique candle store and spending $30 on one candle, but yes, it's a small locally owned business, or you could go to the freaking dollar store and buy 10 candles for that. Like, it's hard
mm,
to justify to someone who has to put food on the table too.
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly. No, very good point. Yeah.
Like your intentions and your desires to shop smaller are obviously there, but the reality of the world for a lot of people is they can't afford or justify the cost.
Yeah. Susie's comment, I live in a third world country and you can learn to live without all the choice you have in America. You can thrive. You just need to change your mindset about what's important. I
So true.
totally, totally, totally agree. Like I said, I didn't buy clothing besides like underwear for like 3 years. And
Same.
I didn't miss out on like, oh yeah, what's the trend and stuff. And I do think there is, we were talking about this too, like as you get older, you just like, I don't care. I'm just gonna wear
Meh.
what's comfortable. Like I definitely
Yeah.
cared more about like fashion trends and stuff when I was like in my 20s, but
Hmm.
I don't know. It's you have to I do think on the consumer side, it's like changing attitudes about how much you consume is definitely something that's possible. You might not be able to impact what people buy because again, if there's something that they feel is decent quality and it's $12 and they're like, I want that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but if you can make them see that it's maybe not so much about what they want, but maybe more about what they need to
Right.
live with and change the values too. Like I think, one thing people mentioned in the comments too was like um that social media, like people don't want to be in the same photo on Instagram in the same outfit, or they don't want to
Oh.
be in different photos in the same outfit. They don't want to wear that. It's like I was like that in college. You never want to go to a party wearing something you had worn before,
Oh
you
my
know.
God.
But I did a lot of like thrifting and stuff like that. But like, it's that mentality of
Oh,
you always have to look fresh.
yeah. Oh,
So
that's rough.
social media is like driving that too.
Totally.
Hey, existential.
Okay. That downward pressure, combined with diminished labor power, means that the $1.5 trillion apparel industry has fallen to a place of widespread abuse that would not have looked out of place in the early years of industrialization. In 2022, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, enforcing a legislative mandate to prevent goods made with forced labor from entering U.S. markets, stopped $816.5 million worth of products, up from $55 million in 2020, 2 years before, including garments.
Mm,
Trent,
wow.
yeah, that's a massive, massive increase.
That's and forced la I mean, I don't like the term forced labor because it's it's slave labor.
Right, that's like a softening of the
Yeah,
reality.
exactly. Yeah, but I mean,
Woof.
yeah, that's wild.
That's disgusting.
Mm,
Transparentum, the nonprofit investigative group that I founded, has exposed numerous abuses in the supply chains of dozens of companies, including forced labor, child labor, and highly polluted working environments.
mm. That's another
Uh,
thing, like, um, you know, wor when you're working with garments and dyes and chemicals and things like that, like, it's not just the fact that they pay them nothing and force them to work, but, like, the exposure to
yeah, they're at all kinds of different risks.
yeah, definitely. I wanna say a Lily's comment, I think FOMO and the self-induced stress people have surrounding staying on trend is a part of this too, not blaming people, just saying that's what social media and marketing pushes.
Yeah,
Yep. And Hazel says sanitizing the language.
yeah.
And hello, Lee.
Hello, Lee.
Yeah.
Uh, okay. Across Malaysia and other garment producing countries we investigated, workers described being held hostage in the same trap, debt bondage after paying exorbitant recruitment fees to unscrupulous recruiters.
Mm.
So that's like indentured servitude, really.
Yeah, it almost sounds like, what do they call the people, like coyotes or whatever, who get people across the
Across the
border?
border.
Yeah, and they, people have to pay them thousands of dollars, and like
Yeah,
sometimes ends up being a human trafficking situation. But
most times,
I
yeah.
mean, you shouldn't have to pay to like work.
Right.
My gosh,
My God.
what a system.
The apparel industry suffers from what economists call an agency problem. Brands rely on auditors to uncover violations in factories, then often require the factories to pay for their own audits. Unsurprisingly, the typical audit is short, untrustworthy, and, as transparentum found at most audited factories we investigated, easily gamed. Suppliers already operating on razor thin margins cannot afford to lose customers, nor can the auditors, who often show little interest in scrutinizing their clients to the point of discomfort.
And I wonder if there's a lot of bribery and stuff
Of
like that
course,
too.
there
Yeah.
has to be.
Yeah.
Younger consumers who tend to be progressive and skeptical of received wisdom offer the world's best hope for change. They are concerned about moral consumption, seeing as it is a question of self identity. In 2015, 73% of global millennials said they would pay more for sustainable products. That figure may grow even larger as millennial incomes continue to rise. Millions of users of sites like Poshmark and Depop, websites that specialize in helping users buy and sell used clothing, are millennials and Gen Zers, many of whom are looking for a way to avoid primary fast fashion consumption entirely. That's good.
Yeah. So 73% are willing to pay more for sustainable products. They're interested in buying sustainable products. Again, it's like getting sustainable products to the consumers who are interested in buying them, because I think
Right.
that there are more people who are willing to. There is like a supply and demand issue, right? Like there isn't I mean, they mentioned Patagonia in this article. I could see in the next paragraph, but like what other companies are there? Like, you know what I mean? That are really known for. That's it. It's like the fact that you can't even name any. Like we can name all the unethical companies,
Right.
but where are the alternative? Like where are the competitors to Patagonia? You know what I mean? And I'm like Patagonia is also like one specific style. If that's not like you're
Right.
not
Like
into
a,
like outdoorsy hippie,
yeah, exactly.
clothing, then
Then what?
what? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it would be nice to know more.
Yeah.
Okay. Ma- uh, Many young consumers are also obsessed with truth, and they aren't buying some brand's superficial greenwashing or flimsy claims of ethical production. Nor should they. To date, precious few companies, Patagonia is a rare exception, even attempt to be sufficiently transparent about true working conditions in their supply chains. Although young consumers would pay more for sustainable products, brands lack the transparency needed to close the deal. Yeah. This presents an opportunity. We know young consumers are willing to pay more for clothing made by workers whose voices can be heard, and we all need to know that those workers are okay. A first urgent step. Apparel companies should publish full, detailed social compliance audits which purport to evaluate working conditions to all upstream factories or at all upstream factories. Such disclosure would allow investors, other brands, consumers, activists, unions, and critically, the workers themselves to audit the auditors and, progressively, be a part of more inclusive monitoring. A second step. All apparel and footwear companies should sign the Commitment to Responsible Recruitment. Its signatories vow to ensure that no workers at their suppliers should pay a broker for their jobs, a setup that often leads to forced labor, and to ensure that all workers are allowed to hold on to their travel documents and to retain their freedom of movement. It also says
Mm.
that migrant workers should be informed in their own languages of the true terms of employment before they leave their home country. God,
Hmm.
it's so sad that like that has to be said.
It's not even like, yeah. I mean, it's a slave situation when, first of all, they're paying into the system, which
Right.
is insane. They're taking their ID.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what? Um,
Not,
yeah, and then they're crossing countries. I mean, we have so much human trafficking in the US, like too, there are literally millions of
of
trafficked people
course.
here. And not just, sex trafficking, but like factory
All
workers and
kinds.
stuff in the
Yes.
US and children. It happens here too. Like I
Yeah,
like
it
that
happens everywhere.
they're offer yeah, I like that this author is offering like
Some
solutions
solutions.
to
Yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
True transparency may mean that companies need to invest more to listen and respond to the people who make their clothes. For consumers, that t-shirt might cost them more than $12.74. But for millions of workers whose freedom and safety are every day held hostage, the cost of laboring in darkness is already too high.
Yeah. So short article there. They have a few more a few more articles down there at the bottom. But
Yeah.
Existential said there should be laws against American companies outsourcing to foreign slave labor. 100%. Like that's the thing as a consumer too, I want to just know that someone didn't, you know,
Right.
like that someone didn't like what's the word, slave away. I
Suffer
don't know.
horrendously
Yeah,
or
like so that I could have
attempt to jump to their
clothes.
death.
I'm sorry, I would rather be naked than wear something that was made by a slave. Right?
I
I mean,
know, it's
it's
horrible.
actually insane. Like, you know, those Americans, we can kind of transport ourselves back 150 years and say, like, what would I have done? I wouldn't have been complicit in this. Well, more than 150 years, but I wouldn't have been complicit in this system. I would have fought against it. And then, like, as a consumer, we're complicit in it, but like, it shouldn't. My argument is, it shouldn't be the consumer's job. Like,
Right.
there are so few options for places to buy clothing ethically. I mean, one thing you can do is just not buy clothing, but at some point, things wear
Yeah,
out and
you're
you
gonna
have to
have
buy
to.
something. Right. And just spending more is no guarantee that it's produced ethically. So, should I as a consumer have to audit every company that I buy from? You can't.
Right.
You can't do that. It has to be at the government regulatory level. And obviously companies are not going to do it for themselves. They're going to do whatever's
No.
legally the cheapest possible
Yep.
thing so that they
Whatever
can
they can legally get
accumulate the
away with.
most profit. Yeah.
Uh,
So Daria
bad
says the
times.
paradigm shift is needed for true change within the current capitalist society. Nothing ever changes, not only in the US. Hazel says that's kidnapping, my dudes. And Existential says everyone in America is against outsourcing because they took our jobs and not because of human rights violations. So I'd agree with a conservative about outsourcing, but not for the same reasons. I agree. I definitely, absolutely 100% prefer to buy American made anything. I really try to
Yes.
avoid anything made in China. But obviously, China is not the only country that's like, you know, with unethical labor standards or whatever. But I know, the US has its own issues, right? Like we haven't raised our minimum wage in 13 years or something. And
Right.
the minimum wage is insanely low here. And working standards are not great here too. We know that child labor happens in factories here too. Still, it's still there's at least like a standard there.
A standard of some kinds of protections.
Yeah, we know it's at least a higher standard. So I do feel better about buying American made things, European made things, you know.
Right.
Um, labor standards in Europe are way higher. I don't know about Canada. I'm assuming they're somewhat in line with the US or so.
Yeah.
Um, I think, yeah, Marie says the consumer have the power to not overconsume. And that's, to me, the best thing that you can do is just consume less because you don't know where it's
Less.
coming from. There's a very, very good chance that a slave made that consumer product or piece of clothing that you're buying. Why you can't have that on your conscience.
Well, and but the problem is, or the trouble is, that some like a lot of people I doubt even have a second thought at all about that kind of thing. Like it doesn't cross their mind.
Well, that's why like I wanted to do this stream, you
Yeah. Oh,
know?
of course.
Because even if one person thinks twice, I don't know. It's like I'm not trying to like be virtuous or something like, oh, I did buy nothing for a long ass time. And
Yeah.
like you can do it. It's actually possible. And also it's not about perfection, like I was saying earlier, it's just about reduce. If everyone reduced their consumption, it would just make such a big impact. And you can, like it's possible. You can just buy less.
Yes. Oh, think about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch before you go
Oh my
shopping.
god. It's so big.
Yes, isn't it like what is it like the size? Did I hear it was like the size of Texas or something?
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah. It's like a
Horrible.
billion acres, or I don't know.
Oh my
Real it's
god.
it and it actually it's like, it has its own ecosystem now.
I
Like cuz there's like
know.
corals and stuff, and yeah,
Oh
the
my god,
garbage
that's
patch. Um
hell yeah, existential. I'm still close for my 20s. I'll be 44 in June. I do
nice.
too. I have a lot of like I don't buy clothing often because I don't need it.
Yeah.
I was saying before we went live, I was telling Lisa like I wear like the same like 4 or 5 outfits. Like
Yeah. And you work in an office, so
yeah,
it's like, I work from home, so that's like an extra layer of
yeah.
luxury.
Oh yeah, I
Like
have like
I just wear
this is my
sweatpants every
Wednesday
day.
shirt. This is my Thursday shirt.
I mean, it's like good. You can do that.
Yeah,
I worked for a dentist, and she used to wear the same pants like every day. She would just wear like black jeans every day,
yeah.
and like nobody cared. It was like nobody cared.
Nope.
Um, yeah, and Hazel says, and you'll save so much money. That's the other thing.
Right.
Like consuming very little. I know in my life, like consuming less has enabled me to actually work less. Um, and I value my time over buying a lot of shit, you know? I mean,
Yeah,
I do buy stuff still. I'm not perfect, but like, yeah.
yeah. I have always been the kind of person when it comes to money, I buy experiences, not things. Like I don't really buy
Yes.
myself items or things or whatever, but I use my money for yeah experiences, trips, going to a
Yeah.
concert, a show, traveling to see a friend, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Endeavor says I have a shopaholic sister, and since I was a
I
kid,
know.
I've felt obligated to reduce buying anything to offset how much money and materials she wastes. I too have a sister who is a clothes horse, is the word. Like I used
Clothes
to live with
horse.
her. Have you heard that term?
No.
It's just like a person who buys a lot of clothes. Like when I lived
Oh,
with her, and she would order stuff online like probably twice a week.
oh wow.
Can you imagine? Like we were
No.
getting packages like probably twice a week. Yeah. So, and I'm like, and
Wow.
a lot of it would just sit in the closet and she would never even wear it. She was just like a shopping addiction.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. People get
And
really hooked on like the high of like spending and then the anticipation of waiting for the arrival and then the excitement of
yeah.
opening the package and then having the new thing. Yeah, it's a
Yeah, you can
uh
get a lot of, you can
endless
get
cycle.
dopamine. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I'd find a different source for that
Yeah.
dopamine. Oh.
Yeah. I have a sister who has 2 kids, so now I have to have negative 2 kids to balance it out.
Yeah, right.
Oh, Nana. So
Ooh.
funny.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing you can do. Don't have kids.
Yeah. That,
Um,
yeah,
someone was
that's a
saying
lot of
earlier in the chat
consumption.
something about like children's clothing, like they wear it
Right, I did
for
see that comment. They wear
six
it for two
months.
weeks and then if that
Yeah,
even.
they grow out of it.
I know.
Yeah. At least
Yeah.
as an
Well, and
adult, if your size doesn't change too much, like you can wear your
right,
clothes till they wear out.
for a long time. And
Yeah.
like a lot of like some children's clothing and like shoes and stuff is so ridiculously expensive, and
Yeah.
it's only going to be worn briefly. Like, you know what always makes me insane is people who buy like their infants like Nikes and Adidas shoes for their
Yeah.
infants. I'm like, they're gonna wear this.
So
They're gonna fit in
wild.
this for 3 weeks, and the Nikes, baby Nikes, are like $60 or $70. Like what? Makes
I will never understand it.
makes no sense.
I don't understand the motivation
No,
at all.
so wild.
Yeah. Thank you for reading the article.
Yeah.
I just want
Thanks for
to,
finding it.
learn. Yeah, it was quite short. I mean, I also not anything like, you know, it also brings to mind another thing, which is you can't assume you can't assume the government is really protecting you or anybody else. Like, because I would like to just buy clothes and be like, okay, somebody up there, not God, I mean the
Uh-huh.
government, like did the work of making sure that this clothing is ethically sourced and that, if I'm as an American, I don't want to be buying stuff that was made by a slave, right? Like, can we get
Right.
some laws
Why is
in
that
place
something
for
that we
that?
even have to
Like,
consider?
right.
Good Lord.
So I don't know what do we write to my senator or something? Like maybe I'll do that. I don't know, it's just but then like nobody here has incentive to like pass any laws about that because it's not
Right.
happening here,
It's not happening
you know?
here. Not
We
to.
can't even get our own labor laws straight.
Uh,
So like we're going to worry about labor laws in other countries. At least like in the article mentioned they're confiscating stuff at the border.
border.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Corporations own the government. So again, it all comes back to just consuming less. That's really the one thing that you can do is like at the
Right.
very least not have it on your conscience that you're contributing to it. And if enough people do that, it would change. That's the other thing. I was actually talking to my dad about this and he's like, "Oh, well, like there's an argument that it's like, well, it gives those people a job." And I'm like, "It's not a job, first of all, it's slavery. Second of all, like if enough people were like I refuse to buy stuff that was made in those conditions, the conditions would change. It's the same thing with like animal factory farming and stuff like that. If enough people refuse to do it, it will change. Like they're not just going to keep producing things that like no one's
Right.
buying. And if the reason why people
Yep.
aren't buying it is because of the factory conditions, then they will change that. I have a
Yeah.
degree in economics, by the way.
I know. I know. It's so great.
uh, supply and demand.
Yep. You gotta put your money where your mouth is.
Hazel says politicians are all paid off and incentivized to lax regulations. Oh,
Yeah. Rough. Let's see. When people say it's just a job, sound like sound just like men saying prostitution is voluntary. Oof.
yeah. Well, it's also like, oh, well, what else would they be doing? It's better that they have a job than not have a job. It's like,
Well,
no, it's not better to have that job.
right. Like no, that all human beings deserve dignity.
Yes,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
the cost of living shouldn't be your dignity.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It. we're so lucky and privileged to live in the first world, even
I
though
know. We
the
did
US
nothing
and
to get
Canada
there.
have
We
our
just were
issue.
born
Yeah,
here.
I know. So I feel like at the very least, we should, you know, raise awareness about this stuff
Yeah,
and encourage people to consume less slash more ethically,
whatever you're able
whatever
to
you can
do.
do. Yeah.
The wages they pay those people aren't even enough to get them out of poverty in their own country, let alone ours. It's not a job.
Right. What did
And
they say in Bangladesh? They make $3 an hour a day.
or less.
Yeah, and Lee
Or
says, I wonder if
less.
more of those enslaved people were women versus men. And yeah, definitely. And
Definitely.
textile factories are like almost all women
Right.
and children. Daria says, how do we motivate people around us to try and consume less? Personally, the slavery talk doesn't work. Peeps usually find themselves suffer too much doing their own work to not consume. You mean like that consumption is like a way that they get pleasure out of life?
Right. Yeah, people usually feel like they themselves suffer too much doing their own work to not consume. So they
You know, I
consume
the way
to
that I
go
thought
ahead.
about it for so long, it's like, oh, if I buy this product, that's like I had to have worked like 5 hours or so, whatever. You know what I mean? Think of it in those terms. It's like that's actually your life. You know, you buy
Right.
XYZ product, it's like that's hours of your life. Was it really worth it? Like some things obviously you need, and some things are worth
Of
it,
course.
you know? But some things really
But yeah,
are
if you think
not.
like this sweater is going to cost me 3.5 hours at work,
Right.
right? Or yeah, in those terms, it puts it into perspective a little bit better.
Maybe having things that you enjoy outside of work that take time, you know what I mean? Like,
Like endeavors.
yes, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. Great minds. People need more hobbies that don't involve buying a bunch of stuff to do it. I get that it's hard. I I read this book. I think it was a book that I read for work, and it was about this family, and the the kid grew up, and they would always go to like they would go out, like they would go out to fancy dinners, and they would go out shopping like every weekend or whatever. And the dad was like in the mafia or something paid for it. It was nonfiction. And and you know, they would go to casinos. Like this is as he was growing up, right? And then he got to adulthood and he married this woman who came from like kind of a poor family, and she had a simple life. And he's like, she likes to go for walks. And I've learned to like that. And it would have never even ever occurred to me to go
What a
for a
novel
walk
thing.
as a form of entertainment or a form of pleasure. Like, because in my
Right.
family growing up, we always went out and spent money. That was the way that we enjoyed ourselves. And and like, yeah, exactly. People, I don't know. My opinion really, I really had this shift when I was about 30 years old because I got really into rock climbing. And in the rock climbing world, what is valued is time because it takes a long time to climb. Like you're out there all day. So you can't really like work. And that's why there's the stereotype of climbers living in a van and
Oh
stuff.
yes. Oh, you know what? I
Right?
watched I watched Free Solo last night. How weird.
No kidding.
Yes.
What did you think? What did you
It was
think?
wonderful. It was great. I loved it. And it just that's so funny that you mentioned that because Alex Honnold lived in a van
Yeah.
forever. I really enjoyed it, and it was incredibly stressful and terrifying,
Yeah.
and it was hard to watch, but it was really great.
Yeah, that's super what did you think of their relationship?
Ugh.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're I looked on Instagram last night. They're happily
Yeah.
married now. They have a child.
They have a
They
kid.
their
Yeah.
pictures and stuff. I mean, Instagram isn't real life. We know that, but all of the pictures of them with their family, it's so cute. They're always out hiking and climbing together. It's
Yeah.
So I don't know. Seems to have worked out,
He's
but
like autistic, you know?
for sure.
So I don't know that he would ever have a like normal relationship with a woman, but
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
if it's working for them, it's good. But I definitely remember seeing that and being like, whoa,
I
like that
know.
was the part that had the impact on me was just like, oh my God, their
Yeah.
relationship is kind of toxic. But
I wonder though, like, not to defend a man or anything,
right.
but maybe like he was so singularly focused on that task that
Yeah.
like it consumed everything, and then maybe now that it's accomplished, like things are better. I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah.
just funny you mentioned rock climbing, and I watched Free Solo last night.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I used to do that with like
I know.
ropes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the thing that changed for me with like consumption and lifestyle and wanting money and anything like that was like because I had a career. I lived in Greenwich. I, you know, had um like a career in the hedge fund industry. I was like doing the materialistic like Patrick Bateman kind of lifestyle or whatever. And
Wolf of Wall Street.
yeah, exactly. And I was like, yeah, this is and I got into climbing. There's actually you know that meme that's like it's like a guy pushing a domino and they get bigger and bigger or
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like going to the climbing gym for a birthday party and then the top one is like peeing in a bottle in a van that's now your home. But it's really like that because it's like you need like lots and lots and lots of time
Mhm.
to climb, so you have to give up earning money and consuming
Your worldly
things.
possessions.
Yeah, and you're just yeah, it's a life of poverty, but it's great. You just learn to like get dopamine from other sources, you know,
Yeah.
and just value other things. I just read a book about France and like their values versus the US. It's just insane. Like
There's
how
lots
much
of workers' strikes going on in France right now.
oh yeah, and they're exactly like
I
they
mean, they've got
value
a long history of
it's a
striking
it's
and
against the law
revolution.
to eat at your desk in France,
Good.
you know, and they have, you know, some people have 9 weeks of paid vacation there,
I know. That's
and the
crazy.
government pays for like spa vacations, and it's just a whole different. It's like a whole different mentality and value system,
Yeah.
and it is
What's
societal,
that?
but
Sorry, what's that
yeah.
documentary? Oh, by Michael Moore, Where to Invade Next.
Oh yeah,
It is
is that
so
where they
good.
show the like school lunches or whatever in
Kind of.
different
So,
countries?
oh my gosh, highly recommend. It might still be on Netflix. It's called Where to Invade Next. I'm putting it in the chat. Michael Moore travels around the world finding about the way other countries do things like education and healthcare and time off at work and maternity
Yeah,
leave and blah, 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 and how wonderful it is compared to the way the United States do it. So it's all about like, it's just a really great documentary, and it's incredibly eye opening to the way the world lives in
yeah,
compared to America.
yeah, yeah. I think people in America feel like we live the best standard of living in the whole world and stuff, and it's in some measures
Yeah.
we do, and a lot of measures we definitely don't, and just what
Ooh.
we value is really, you know, I know that's the and like in Scandinavia and stuff, like the whole IKEA, you know, lifestyle, like that the whole reason that got popular is like because people value time with their families and
Yeah.
stuff, you know, that's what's versus in America, it's all about how much money you make. That's like
Yes.
what your
And
value as a person is. It's insane.
yeah, and like the consumerism of like
Mhm.
your products you purchase and stuff is how you signify your status.
Exactly.
This also just reminded me because I'm reading Invisible Women right now,
Okay. I started
and
it too. I just
good,
read the
good,
like
good.
preface or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah. I just finished a bit where it was talking about um, maternity leave and stuff, and
Mm.
the thing that shocked me when I was reading it said
Mhm.
that um, in the United States, women typically return to work 2 weeks after giving birth.
Yeah.
I that like
Oh, some
my
women
jaw was
it's
on the
even
floor.
less.
My jaw was on the floor.
Yeah, I would say that's typical, but yeah, some women are back within like a few days.
I think it also in this book said that the United States is the only country in the world that doesn't have a paid maternity leave standard.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. And I don't know specifics, but like protections even for like, not being able to be fired because you're pregnant
Oh
and
yeah.
stuff. I don't know the exact I probably should know that, but
We'll learn it if we keep reading, maybe.
yeah. Um Useless says insane, so cruel to both mom and baby or primates. Baby should not be away from mom. I know. Oh my God. That I wonder actually think about like the mental health crisis of like every generation it's getting worse, but like probably
Right.
more and more generations as infants were separated from their mother
Right.
and
They
in
didn't have
daycare.
the proper time to
Yeah,
form secure attachments with their mothers or their primary caregiver.
right.
And we're all screwed up and what I don't know what's the opposite of attached. Why can't I think?
Yeah,
Like yeah, we don't have the proper attachment. Um,
right.
yeah, that's so
Like
true.
yeah, fear of abandonment and stuff. Like um and our brain like we're born I don't know, just the because we walk upright, right? And we have to have a
Yeah.
fairly small pelvis for that, but then, you know,
Thank you. Jesus.
uh the baby has to be born when it's not developed. Like, versus like a horse which can walk within 24 hours of being born and things like that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And they're up eating, doing everything like right away. Um the babies are so helpless for so long, and it's all because of the size of our pelvis relative to the size of the baby's head, and our brains are so big and whatever. But it's like, think about that. So much brain development has to happen after birth, but part of that brain development is like the bonding with the mother.
Exactly.
And it's not the brain is not going to develop. No, I'm not a scientist. I'm just talking out of my ass right now, but like, come on, it totally makes sense, right? The brain is not going to develop normally
Mm-hmm.
if part of brain development is supposed to be like bonding with the mother.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no way.
No
So
way.
what, you're gonna go to work for 8 hours a day, like when the
It's so
baby's a
sad.
week or two old? Insane.
It's so sad. But like they don't have a choice. Like that's what they have to do to survive.
Right. Right.
Oh, it's horrible.
Age of Goddess. I love that name. Too many people never bonded with their mothers now, it's clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like and at least in America, it's like you have the option to not do it.
Mm-hmm. I know. It's so
Well, there's a lot of states now where you don't really have the option.
sad. Yeah.
I guess there's still other ways to prevent pregnancy, though.
Mm-hmm.
They want to get rid of those too.
I know. Oh, it's
But,
so crazy.
it's like we are, like we said, we are privileged and grateful too. It's not just like,
Oh, yes.
lucky. Okay, we got fucking lucky being
Big
born
time.
in America and Canada.
Yep.
But what are you
But
going to
I'm
do
still
with that?
grateful.
Yeah. Gratitude's important, but it's like we do have the option. There's so many, oh my God, there's so many women in Afghanistan or whatever who would be like, I would love to be single and go get a job and do whatever
Oh, heartbreaking.
and not have a family. And then it's like women here who have the option and they still, because like also so many pregnancies are unplanned. It's like 50% or something. So it's like you didn't even plan it. You didn't even care enough to plan it.
I
And then you're going to
know.
go ahead and have it. Insane.
I know. it does not compute to me. Um, so many children are born into uh, yeah,
Yeah.
situations. You know, I was thinking the other day about um, I actually recorded like a little 3 minute thing that I thought I might post, but I maybe I won't. I'll just say here. I was thinking about being an anti-natalist, which I am,
Yeah.
and how people say that women who are anti-natalists are sociopathic or evil or they
Oh,
hate children or whatever. And it's like, it's because I actually care about what
yeah.
children are going to inherit that I'm now an anti-natalist. I care very much that children today or babies being born right now are going to grow up in a horrifically,
It's what
disgustingly capitalist society, a climate crisis that is beyond irreversible.
right.
It's because I care that I
Yeah,
am an
absolutely.
anti-natalist. I'm not an evil, sociopathic,
It
child-hating
comes from a
person.
it comes from a place of empathy and compassion. It's like every time I see a little kid, oh,
Yeah, I'm like, what are your
I
life
was
going to
at
be
this
like when you're
like
my age?
yeah, I was at this flower garden and there was a mom, it's like just a big field with flowers in it. People go it's like a park. Anyways, but
Yeah.
there was a mom there and her feeding two of her kids in the like they were sitting in the trunk of the car or whatever. And I was just like looking at these kids and they were like 3 years old, 2 or 3 years old or something. I was just like, man, I don't know. I had a moment where I was just like, I feel so bad for them. And they're probably like growing up in, pretty relative privilege, but still it's like the
Right.
climate, the climate.
It's
Like this year is not the hottest year in the last 100 years. It's the coolest year in the next 100 years.
right.
When you think of that, we are so fucked.
I know. Yeah.
Like we're fucked.
Yes, us. Never
Like
mind
we're
the next
old.
generations.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
It's
yeah,
going to
I
be
just,
bad for us. We're going to experience it. So why would you ever 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 bring someone into that to experience it with
I
you?
know.
I just don't get it.
Neither. Yeah, and it makes me sad when people say that we're like evil and sociopathic
Who
for
says
that.
that?
Well, you know who. Some people do.
Oh.
We've received
Um,
that kind of commentary. But it's no, it's because I'm compassionate and I'm afraid and I
my
care very much about what the world is going to be like for little people today.
Absolutely. My close friend in real life, the cop, my white friend,
Mhm.
um, he's married and then he was telling me, "Oh, we're gonna try to have a kid this summer or like get pregnant."
Mm,
And I'm like I'm like on the phone like begging him like please don't do it. He's like my age, you
right.
know? I'm
Yeah.
like, first of all, you're so damn old already. Second of all, look look at this world.
Yeah.
You
If
want to have a
you,
kid and you're going to send him to public school and they'd have to do school shooting drills every month?
right.
That's the world we live in. It's so depressing. How could you like you're literally going to traumatize another human being.
Yeah. Yeah. It is so depressing. You're right.
Existential, we love you.
Yeah. Very much so.
Um Yeah, it's not like an ego thing. It's just, and look, people who've had kids, do your best. I'm not saying like, I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
just saying like, if you have the option and you're considering it, like, I am so happy. Like, that's the other thing. I mean, that's the one thing where I'm like, like Nietzsche said, to live is to suffer, but
Right.
like I actually love life. But I think one of the reasons I am so happy is because of the lifestyle that I've chosen.
Uh
Like
huh.
it's the most like stress-free lifestyle. I only worry about myself more or less, at least at
Yeah.
this
Same.
juncture. maybe at some point I'll have to worry about my parents, but
Right. Yeah, same.
you know, like I don't have those layers of stress. And even when I've invited a man in and stuff, like my stress level went up like exponentially. It was just a reminder that like, no, I have chosen the right path,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
so we said we were going to go about an hour.
Yeah, we thought we would keep it a little short this time because we're both a little bit under the weather.
Yeah.
So let's see.
And this was a really
Tomorrow. Oh,
good
go ahead.
conversation though, you
Yeah, very
know?
much so.
Like it's not the fun like you and Rusty last night. It was so much
Oh my
fun.
gosh,
Obviously
she
this is
is
not like
chaos. I love her.
it's this was our vegetables, stream
Yes.
vegetables. You know, once in a while we have to talk about like
Serious
something
stuff.
serious and educational.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tomorrow I will be streaming again. Oh my god. With my one of my in real life best friends.
Mhm.
And we're going to do a stream specifically about Lesbian Visibility Day and talking about lesbian stuff in specific.
Mhm.
And we're both really looking forward to it. And it's going to be really fun and
Yay.
informational and exciting. So
I'm
everyone,
I'm looking
feel
forward to
free
that
to
too.
join. And then next Tuesday, we'll be on Lisa's channel. And we
Yes.
have a really specific, we don't want to give it away,
No, we're
but we
not going
have
to give it
like
away.
a
It's
really,
going to be fun.
it's going to
It's
be fun.
it's not going to be a vegetable. It's going to be Lucky Charms. No, actually it's going to be you're just going to see. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
So I saw something that I wanted to show since it's Lesbian Visibility Week.
Oh,
Um, I didn't look it up. I just this was in the book that I was the French book that I was reading, but they were talking about um, there's something called Les Femmes Damnées, which are a series of poems by Baudelaire about lesbian desire,
ooh.
and they're from 1857, and they were banned. So I was
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, that might be an interesting thing to look that up. Um, but let me see. Les femmes damnées. A
That's
woman
exciting.
doomed.
Um,
But I don't know. I'm like not. Oh yeah, here we go. Oh, Baudelaire's poem Delphine and Hippolyta.
I don't know that one.
I don't know either. So I don't know. Like I'm just Googling this. I'm actually not coming up with very much, but
No worries, no worries.
well, there's okay. I'm gonna look into this more and then I'll send you whatever I come up with.
Okay.
Um, maybe it was a kind of a highbrow book, so it might not be like the most entertaining thing, but we'll see. Anyways,
We'll
I just
see.
thought I would mention that.
Thanks.
Yes.
So yeah, next Tuesday, Lisa's channel.
Yes.
Um,
And I will probably be streaming on Friday. I don't have a topic though. I was thinking maybe doing
ooh,
some yoga. I don't know.
let me
Um,
like usually like your 1 o'clock slot.
yeah.
You think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to do it every Friday. So I don't have a topic. So if anybody has an idea, also hopefully I have my video done maybe by Thursday,
Ooh.
but maybe I'll just put my video out on Friday if that's timing wise works better. I don't know. Who knows? I feel like I'm slightly getting sick, so hopefully I'm not, but that's might factor in. I
Mm,
love to stream. I like to stream with my face too because I feel like I can
yeah,
connect with people better that way, and so I want to yeah, I want to keep those Friday streams like going.
yeah,
But yeah, I'm very, very much looking forward to oh, that's nice. Thank you, Lily. Appreciate that. Um, nice.
yeah.
I um yeah, I think I like that time slot a lot myself.
Hmm.
Yeah. So we'll meet back we'll meet back next Tuesday on my channel.
Yes.
And cool.
Yeah, and
Thank you
as
for having
always,
me. Yeah.
oh yes, thank you for coming. And as always, Lisa and I are completely receptive to suggestions of topics and ideas. So like, just leave us a comment on whoever's channel, because
Yeah, comments are the best way.
yep,
And I said this in I streamed Harry Potter the other night. It is that my last two videos were from
right,
streams. So
suggestions.
yeah, like the parking lot thing, I didn't know anything about that. So that came from a subscriber. And then I'm working on this video about Paris Paloma.
Yep.
And that came from a subscriber. And dude, I have put 40 plus hours into that video already. So just like that idea that someone could leave a comment
And
and
spark
then I
all of
will
that.
work on a video for 40 hours because you left me a comment is
Yeah,
like
exciting.
I want people to take advantage of that, you know? But like cuz I don't leave our little tiny bubble. So I don't know what's going on out in the world besides our channels and the New York Times more or
Yep.
less, you know? So if you got something, tell me because you know, I want to
Yeah.
know.
Well, and
I'm like
likewise,
very inspired.
uh, my stream tomorrow with my friend was also inspired by suggestions from my community post. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome.
So thank
Okay.
you everybody for coming. Thank you all of the people we adore. This was fun, and we'll see you next week on Lisa's channel.
Yay. Can't wait.
Bye.
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 Bye.